and gentlemen, it's been 7 days, but Trudeau won't just give up beating around the bush. Apart from his repeated inane charges claiming Canada has credible evidence of India's hand in the alleged killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, he is yet to produce even an iota of proof. The patronage has emboldened the anti-India to the hilt, with protesters thronging outside Indian diplomatic missions in Ottawa, Toronto and Vancouver. There was an insult to the Tiranga, and posters of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi were torn apart and defaced, which explains the free run of the K bandwagon in Canada. But India has made it clear that it won't accept the long rope given to the Khalistanis. A strong message has been sent by Bharat to Canada from the highest diplomatic platform, stating that terror shouldn't dictate a country's political agenda. Listen in to Foreign Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar at the UNGA earlier this evening.
Mr. President, we must never again allow an injustice like vaccine apartheid to recur. Climate action, too, cannot continue to witness an evasion of historical responsibilities. The power of markets should not be utilized to steer food and energy from the needy to the wealthy. Nor must we countenance that political convenience determines responses to terrorism, extremism, and violence. Similarly, respect for territorial integrity and non-interference in internal affairs cannot be exercises in cherry-picking. When reality departs from the rhetoric, we must have the courage to call it out.
Even the world is calling out Trudeau's K bluff. Countries like Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Japan have supported India and accused China of providing shelter and refuge to Khalistan terrorists. And with that position continuing, we'll go to the other debate on when will Canada try to prove and give evidence of the charges that made. Joining me tonight, Ujjal Dosanjh, former Health Minister of Canada. Also joining me this evening, Noah Weisbord, author and Associate Professor at the McGill University. Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow at the ORF, also joining the debate tonight. Ujjal Dosanjh, I want to ask you, shouldn't Canada's Prime Minister...
I can hardly hear you.
Can you hear me?
Louder.
Can you hear me, sir? Am I audible?
I can barely hear you. I can make out what you're saying.
Well, I'll try and speak louder. My question to you is, should the Prime Minister of Canada be providing evidence rather than just making the same charges again and again and again?
I think there are many Canadians that are asking the same question, whether or not he should provide evidence. I mean, that may depend, not that I'm an analyst here for you, that may depend on where and what stage the investigation is at. My belief is that his hand was forced because the Globe and Mail was going to come out with a story, therefore he had to act. And he may not be in a position to share the evidence, and one doesn't necessarily have to damn the speaker just because the evidence isn't forthcoming as yet.
Well, in which case, what about law and order? Do you think high commissions of India in Canada are places where there should be a free run to Khalistanis who are tearing the Tiranga, the flags of the Indian Republic, who are defacing posters? Is that at least Mr. Trudeau's problem or not?
Well, you know, as saddening as that is, if people want to burn flags of another country or trample upon them, you know, one could argue that's their freedom to do so, as long as there's no violence against the consulates, against the buildings, or against human beings that work there. And I think part of the problem in Canada has been that there have been open threats publicized widely by the Khalistanis against the personnel of the consulates and the High Commission. I mean, that is the nub of the problem. And I think eventually Canadians' leadership did act and did say that that's not appropriate. Now, how strongly that was done or not, that's another issue. I think we've had a problem.
Well, let me get in Sushant Sareen. Pardon me, let me get in Sushant Sareen. Sushant Sareen, burning flags of another country, defacing posters is freedom of expression and there should be no problem with it, says Mr. Dosanjh. You agree?
Look, as an Indian, I don't agree. But I think Indian laws don't apply in Canada and Indian sensitivities don't apply in Canada or the US. For example, in the US, flag burning was a major issue at one point of time, and then they allowed it. They said it comes under freedom of expression. Perhaps Canada subscribes to the same thing. They can burn their own flag and they can burn any other country's flag. Again, I find it distasteful if somebody disrespects my country's flag. But my bigger problem is not just about flag burning. My bigger problem is absolute open threats which are issued on Indian diplomats, targets painted on their back, situations where they were close to being assaulted and the police standing by not doing anything. There are people from the Indian community who have been assaulted by these thugs and nothing has happened to them because they enjoy political patronage and political protection. They also enjoy police protection because some of these goons are also in the police force. It's like operating like a mafia used to operate in the 70s in New York. So that is a bigger problem for me. And then that problem is compounded by the fact that these guys have transnational linkages. They are linked to Pakistan and then they sponsor trouble in India. They fund, there's a lot of funding coming in to subversive elements in India, but they're also running narcotics networks, they're running human trafficking networks, all kinds of nefarious activities taking place. And when that information is shared with the Canadians, and it is the duty of the Canadians, now when they say that, look, give us actual evidence in Canada that these guys are doing it, do you expect us to behave like the Chinese and set up police stations in Canada where we start investigating on our own? Well, it's bizarre what the Canadian government is trying to tell us. And they've not been doing it for now, they've been doing it forever. Just one more thing. Mr. Dosanjh is somebody, you know, a lot of us have always respected for very forthright positions he's taken. But I find it really surprising that a newspaper, because it was going to come out with some report and they'd got some information which they were going to publish, the Prime Minister of a country decides that he will come to Parliament without a shred of evidence that he's going to present and level charges against a country which I presume, even until now, despite all the fracas which has happened, is a friendly country of Canada. I don't think India and Canada are enemy countries. We are not hostile countries. We are not fighting a war against each other. We are friendly countries. In some ways, we are even allies or partners. And yet you diss a country like India publicly, you cause so much of damage to us, and then you expect, and then you don't say anything. And what do you say? Credible allegations. Mr. Dosanjh should tell me what exactly is a credible allegation in or the other gentleman.
Trudeau, Mr. Sareen.
Right. And
I wasn't even told that there's a debate. So I'm not about to take part in a debate, this versus that. I'm here to tell you what I think. If you ask me what I think, I'll tell you.
So has your position changed? Has your position changed, Mr. Dosanjh? Because in 2018, you said Canada and its politicians must stop hiding behind freedom of expression business. Canadian leaders say freedom of expression allows to demand Khalistan peacefully. Have you changed your position since then?
I have said the same thing today. I say Canadian politicians are somewhat cowardly. They have never condemned the activities of the Khalistanis on Canadian soil, generally speaking. They should have done that years ago. They always take refuge under the rubric of freedom of expression. And you know, if you consider India a friendly country, Canada should have acted a long time ago and said very clearly, yes, you can burn a flag. That's Canadians' rights on Canadian soil. You can do whatever else you want. Don't be violent and don't try and dismember a friendly country, because we don't support that.
Well, let me get in Mr. Weisbord. Let me get in Mr. Weisbord, Noah Weisbord. My question to you is, Many countries are today questioning Canada. Is it the new Pakistan? It's become a terror hub. It's become a place which is a narcotics hub. Which way is Canada going? And is the leadership of Trudeau, with support from parties like the NDP and its leader Jagmeet Singh, who himself has Khalistani sympathies at his in his heart, is it just political perseverance of staying in power that make him compromise on all of these issues?
Canada is a rule of law country, and there are many constraints on the executive. So Trudeau has to follow the rule of law. So when he says there's allegations, credible allegations, it means that he's not willing to come forward to say that there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the legal standard. But the law has to be applied equally. So when somebody makes a threat against an Indian diplomat in Canada, the criminal law should be applied against that person. When someone makes a targeted killing within Canada, extrajudicial killing, that person should be prosecuted as a murderer in Canada. And Trudeau also has constraints on him as well. So the intelligence that's coming from the Five Eyes, from the United States, from Australia, from Great Britain, and the other intelligence partners cannot be just divulged out of the blue. It has to be timed with
but you have the freedom to charge another country internationally, raise questions about it. Sushant Sareen makes sense to you?
He can accuse, for sure. Trudeau can accuse India, but he should, you're right, provide credible evidence, proper evidence, so that we can all see it to back the claim. That would be a rule of law approach.
Absolutely. And has there been any evidence to back the claim, Sushant Sareen?
I know that answer. There has been evidence that's coming out slowly. It's trickling out. You've seen the Washington Post recently, I think today, did an expose of how the assassination took place. There's quite a bit of evidence. The government of Canada has not yet come forward
so
to say what it has.
Make the claims first in Parliament and give the evidence in newspapers. Don't share it with the country that has been accused. That is the rule of law in Canada. Well, I seem to have lost that connection with Sushant Sareen, but running out of time. Thank you very much to my panelists, because India is not backing down anytime soon. If there is evidence, India is waiting to see the evidence and how Canada can prove its charges. We leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining me on the NewsHour tonight. Good night and be safe.